Charles Fourier was a French social theorist born in 1772. He was a young man during the French Revolution, which was an era of political and social turbulence. Fourier proclaimed that his mission was to bring order and justice to humanity. A radical change was imperative, but it must be constructive, orderly, and peaceful. He despised social conflict and dreamed instead of a society based on class harmony through scientific organization. He strived to discover a new and more perfect system of social order by the example of modern experiments. Fourier told the story often of dining in Paris in the 1790s, where he was aghast that the price of one apple was the same as the price of 100 apples in the countryside. From that moment, he claims, he began to analyze the evils of the present economy and plot its overthrow. Fourier compared the apple in the story of Adam and Eve to his own apple experience to point out how each signaled the end of civilization and the beginning of a new, better one. He became determined to propel humanity to a new age of universal unity. Fourier set forth his ideas in a series of articles and books, including The Theory of Four Movements and General Destinies, which was published in 1808 during the post-revolutionary period of enlightenment. His works were written in a bizarre style that often defied comprehension and incorporated many eccentric ideas. Such things as 6 moons orbiting the earth and the seas turning to lemonade. Nonetheless, they gradually gained a small group of followers. Fourier's theories were based on the idea that natural passions of human beings, if properly channeled, would result in social harmony. He put forth that people were governed by passional attraction, a system of human passions that categorized each individual. He listed 12 passions that, when combined, produced 810 temperaments each for men and for women. Fourier believed that this number, 1,620 in all, would produce the perfect representation for his new experimental society. In this, Fourier believed that he had discovered the laws that govern society just as Isaac Newton had discovered the laws of physical motion 100 years earlier. Armed with this theory, Fourier postulated an ideal society he called a phalanx, or phalanstery. He was adamant that the phalanstery ought to be vastly different from the villages and towns of traditional capitalist-based society. It should be a structure that looked nothing like a traditional home, which he believed were designed to have no social connection whatsoever. The phalanstery should resemble that of a palace, similar to Versailles, and have covered connections to enable its inhabitants to get from place to place. His vision of phalansterian architecture was also inspired by the great commercial arcades built in Paris in the early 19th century. This new society, consisting of 1,620 men, women, and children, would live together in perfect harmony. It was to be a self-contained community that would distribute wealth more equitably and contribute both to a cooperative lifestyle and individual self-fulfillment. The structure of the phalanstery was composed of 3 parts: a central core and 2 lateral wings. The center was designed for quiet activities, including dining rooms, meeting rooms, libraries, and studies. One of the lateral wings was designed for labor and noisy activities, such as carpentry and forging. It also hosted children, since they were considered by Fourier to be noisy while playing. The other wing contained ballrooms and services for outsiders. The residences were located on the upper floors above the common areas. Fourier also believed that the traditional house was a place of exile and oppression for women. He believed that gender roles could progress by shaping them within the community, and that all important jobs should be open to women on the basis of skill and aptitude rather than restricted on account of gender. He saw traditional marriage as an institution that could potentially hurt women's rights and was more concerned with the liberation of every human individual in 2 senses: education and the liberation of human passion. Although Fourier never realized his ideal utopian experiment, his followers in Europe and in America developed and built several of these utopian communities with varying degrees of success. The Guise family Astaire in France was the most well-developed and successful of these utopian communities. Fourierism spread to America and was realized in two examples amongst many across the country. These two were New Harmony in Indiana and Brook Farm in Massachusetts. Both communities closed within a decade due to infighting and quarrels amongst its members. Charles Fourier's theories of what a successful, harmonious society ideally looked like were largely a product of the disorder of his time. He wished to stabilize the course of events which surrounded him and organize people into communities where social and political order reigned. Although his theories never gained the solid ground that he would have hoped for, the influence of his ideas in French politics was carried forward into the 1848 Revolution, the Paris Communes of the late 1800s, and the works of Walter Benjamin in the early 1900s.